These are 14 of the coolest PlayStation 5 controller secrets. First, we need to understand which version of the PlayStation controller you actually own. Because although the PlayStation 5 hasn't been out for very long, there are actually two different versions of the DualSense controller. You see, the first version of this controller suffered from some massive problems with stick drift issues after around 417 hours of game time. To identify if you have this controller, you want to check the FFC ID number on the back. If this number ends in a 1, this is an older PlayStation controller that has the stick drift problems. But if it says 1A, this is a controller that is fixed and will last much longer. So the next time you purchase a new controller, you want to check this number straight away and then return it if it doesn't say 1A. A nice touch on the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller is how easy it is to customize. You can easily remove the front cover and completely transform the aesthetic of your controller by purchasing some pretty cheap mods off of Amazon. You can even take this one step further and switch out the buttons to RGB lights. On the topic of lights, a very subtle feature on the DualSense is how the indicator light bar illuminates differently depending on how many controllers are connected to the system. And probably a lot of you will have never noticed this, as you're just usually playing with a single controller on multiplayer online with your friends. Another thing you may not have noticed is the unique way that you can use the touchpad when sending a message and typing on the screen. You can operate the touchpad as a mouse cursor to navigate around the keyboard, which can often make it a little bit quicker when typing out a message, but you can do something even more unique. If you press the L3 and R3 thumbsticks together, this will enable gyroscope, which will then enable motion control where you can move your controller around the display to write out a message. One of the biggest weaknesses of the PlayStation controller is definitely its battery life. Now, the internal battery has a lot of practical applications, it's very convenient to charge, however, over time it does gradually degrade, which means the more you play, the worse the predicted battery life is going to be. But you'll be pleased to know that you can actually customize a lot of different settings to improve the battery life of your controller. This all starts with reducing things such as the haptic feedback, also changing the brightness of the color indicators, and probably one of the most important ones is turning off the controller speaker. Because if you're playing with a pair of headphones on, you're not even going to hear this speaker, so it's just a waste of juice. One of the most bizarre features about the PS5 controller is the fact that it works with the PlayStation 3. I'm not too sure why you would want to do this, but the most interesting thing is that the PS5 controller doesn't work on the PS4. But where it starts to get really confusing is the fact that you cannot use the PS5 controller on the PS4, but yet you can use the PS4 controller on the PS5 as long as you're playing PlayStation 4 games. Next, let's talk about some awesome controller shortcuts. Shortcut number 1 is the mic mute button. If you single press this obviously mutes your microphone, but if you long press it for a couple of seconds, it will mute your microphone and also all of the audio coming from your TV. Shortcut number 2 is Bluetooth pairing. If you press and hold the PS button and also the share button for a couple of seconds, this will put your DualSense controller into a pairing mode that allows you to connect it to things such as your iPhone or your iPad. Shortcut number 3 is quick off. If you want to power down your PlayStation controller, you can actually press and hold the PS button for a total of 10 seconds and it will completely turn the controller off. This saves you from jumping into the menu and pressing multiple buttons to do the same action, and also if you're using this in pairing mode with your iPad, this is the only way to turn your controller off. One of my favorite shortcuts is when you're using the home screen. If you press triangle on your controller, you can jump straight up to the search bar and also the settings. And in addition to this, if you also use L1 and R1, this will let you switch between the game and media tab much faster. This next feature is a total game changer. Sometimes when you're playing different games, you may notice that you're constantly customizing the buttons to make them a little bit more comfortable. If you jump into the accessibility settings, go to controllers and then custom button assignments, in here you can completely customize every single button on your DualSense controller to make it exactly how you want it. One of the most underrated features is the controller flash rate when you are charging. The light is dynamic and helps you visually see the progress of the current charge. At first glance, it's very easy to just think that your controller shows an orange light when it is flat. But this light is actually flashing and the speed of it shows the charging progress. It will flash faster the lower the battery level is, and as it gradually gets fuller, the light speed will decrease. On the topic of charging the controller, one of the biggest myths out there is that using a USB Type-C connection on the front of the console will charge your controller faster than the standard Type-A connection. Now, I've actually tested this with both styles of cables from basically 0% charge, and both of them were exactly the same and took around 2 hours and 10 minutes. Finally, at number 14, we have got the DS4 software that you can install on your PC. Now, this was much more prevalent back in the day because you needed it in order to use the DualShock controller on your gaming PC so it would work correctly. But what you can do inside of this program is you can connect your PS5 controller to it, and you can obviously map different buttons and all those types of things to use it inside of games. But you also get complete control over the RGB lights, the light bar on the PlayStation controller, so it can display the full array of colors that it is capable of. These are just some of the crazy things that you can do with your PlayStation, and if you want to find out more, you should check out this video next.